Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to our conservation meeting. Sorry for the couple minutes delay, just getting everybody set up here. So this is the conservation meeting for Monday, January 27th. And I've got a couple things to read to start us off here. This meeting is being held virtual as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. And here's our statement to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Scituate Conservation Commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcome and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. All right. So, Jen, I think the papers to open, or do you want me to?
First, we want to accept the agenda.
Okay, oh, right, sorry. All right, do we have any changes or additions to the agenda?
I don't think so, unless just the normal stuff at the end, maybe.
Okay.
Is Frank muted or?
I just figured that out. Thank
Okay.
you. Maybe just a little update on where we might be with a couple of Concom projects, but only if time permits. So,
Okay.
and that's how it sounds so good. You should open every meeting.
Yes, she sounds lovely, doesn't she?
Much better.
I make a motion, we accept the agenda as written, and we might have a little conversation about some projects at the end.
That's a motion from Penny, right?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Jen can second that. All in favor? Who do we have? Richard?
Yep, I'm here, and yes.
Thank you.
Eric?
And Eric?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. I'm assuming Brendan's not on tonight?
No.
Okay. Okay.
He's not yet.
Yep. He said he was pretty busy. Great. Thanks for kicking the ball, Jen.
Of course.
Let's see. So first is Zero Wood Ave. Did we open that one?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Yes, and I am unmuting Brad Holmes.
Oh, you know what? I have to recluse myself from this one.
Well,
Sorry.
we still have 4, so that's okay.
Okay. Good.
So Jen's back on.
She is.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I'm here.
I should have just stayed out.
Never.
Good evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes from ECR on behalf of Pat Kager for Zero Wood Avenue. We submitted a request for determination of applicability to confirm with the Conservation Commission that the property at Zero Wood Ave does not contain areas subject to jurisdiction. Is it okay if I share the screen?
We don't do that, but
We should have the plan to share.
Okay. If you want to pull up a plan, great.
We're waiting. Coming.
we're
Thanks.
clicking away.
There
Awesome.
it is.
There we go.
Thank you. The property at Zero Wood Ave is it's the triangle here in the corner between Eli Ave, Montvale Ave, and Wood Ave and Hadley Road. The property consists of a vegetated lot, contains mostly non-native invasive plant species. There's a little bit of native plants in there. There are no water bodies or wetlands on or near the site. There is a coastal flood zone that's further to the north associated with Musquashka Pond, but it doesn't come close to the property. So there are no flood zones or other wetland resource areas on or abutting the site. So we've filed the RDA to confirm that this lot doesn't contain areas subject to review under the State Wetlands Protection Act and Town of Scituate Wetlands Bylaw. There are no activities proposed as part of this application. It's just a confirmation of that area. I did get a chance to meet with Frank and Jen on site, and we walked the property and got a feel for the site. It's a simple request. So with that, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Okay, Jen, I'm gonna pass it to you.
Sure. I agree with Brad. We did a site visit. He showed us soils. We looked at vegetation, and we didn't have anything that gave us a conclusion of there being wetland on site. So should you agree with the filing, you would be voting a -1, that the area is not subject to the protection of the Wetland Protection Act or a buffer zone.
Okay. Penny,
Yeah,
do you have anything?
I just have a quick question. Monfield, is that a paper street there, or does it actually go through there, Brad?
It's a paper street.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I thought.
Yep, it's wooded between Hatherley Road and that first house on
Right.
Wood Avenue.
Right. So if a project does come before us, they understand they can't go on the paper street, right? Or they will.
That's not, yes,
No,
but
I
that's not,
said if a project though, make sure that people know that is a paper street, that it's not
Correct.
private property.
yes.
Okay, I'm all set then. Thank you.
Richard,
I'm good. Thank you.
Eric?
I'm good as well. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't think I have any questions. Penny kind of hit it with the Montville Ave one. So
Audience.
yes, thank you. If you are in the audience and you have a question about this one, or a comment, now would be the time to raise your hand virtually.
Ow. Hey.
I
And
do
Jen,
not
I'm not
see
seeing
any
anything.
hands raised. Yeah.
All right.
I'll make a motion
s-
for a -1 on 0 Wood Avenue.
All right, we'll take a
Second.
second. Second from Penny. And Eric,
Yes.
Jen, yes, and Richard.
Yes, I made the motion.
Oh, right, okay. It's like, who does it? All right, I think we're good on 0 Wood Ave.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Yep. You too, Brad.
Hey,
All
We're
right,
on
Frank, you're
to-
back.
thank you.
Jake, will you move?
So let's see what this is for minor beach parking lot, RDA, town of Scituate on January 27th, 6 p.m. The Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws. At the request of determination of applicability filed by the Town of Scituate DPW to improve the recreational kayak launch parking lot for Minot Beach. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting is available on the agenda posted on the website. And I think is Sean, is Sean presenting this, or is somebody from
I am here, Mr. Chairman,
thank you.
as well as two of the design team.
Great.
I think I might have gotten one person. If they can raise their hand so I can unmute them.
This is Katerina here. I believe
Yeah.
I've unmuted. And there's another Matt.
Matt, he's also unmuted. Isn't
Hello.
he? Yep.
Hi there. Thank you, Sean, for the introduction. We're with Strong Tree Engineering. My name is Katerina Korolov. I'm the wetland scientist and permitting specialist for Strong Tree, and Matt Lemon, who is also on this call, personally did the drafting on the site plan, so he's well acquainted with the site in case you have any technical questions. However, this is really an RDA, request for determination of applicability. So it's I'll just give you a simple outline here. As you can see on this site plan, the goal of this proposed project is essentially parking lot improvements at this Minot Beach kayak launch, which is an approximately 0.75 acre lot located along Bailey's Causeway. The existing parking lot does experience regular flooding and waterlogging and outdated drainage systems. The proposed project is considered a repair, maintenance, and restoration project and is not anticipated to have any permanent impacts to the resource areas around. We are essentially upgrading the existing parking lot. Now, this parking lot is located along a salt marsh, and to the north of the parking lot is a seasonal estuarine channel, which is used for kayaking. So this area has a recreational benefit, and we intend to continue to improve that benefit to the community. The general scope is to remove the top layer of pavement, any gravel, and install a new sub-base material and regrade to pave the lot within the existing parking lot footprint with improved drainage features, including stone swales along the south side and cleanouts, improved cleanout systems, and a storm scepter at the north end there. Might see on that plan there, which will help eliminate pollution going into the water system, which at this time is, unfortunately, as I said, it's flooding, so it needs some improvement there. So my last point to make is that when we do regrade this parking lot, the drainage will be lifted up to create a positive drainage away from the wetlands down south towards the upgraded drainage swales.
He's on.
And in the northern
He's on
area,
tonight.
the drainage will go towards the storm scepter. Now, this will reduce existing stormwater flowage into the BVW and resource
Patrick is
area.
on tonight.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
Cool.
Jen, do you want to, Smith?
Yes, so there are some upgrades, I guess, being made as far as better management of stormwater on the site. There's a couple areas where I can see it on my plan in front of me. It's hard to see it on the plan on the screen. There's a couple areas where lumen seed is proposed, and maybe there could be some better plants going in there. I guess the question for tonight is about what, this is repair, maintenance, and restoration of an area. But is there enough work that it's actually a bigger project than that? I'm not sure if we have something more colorful to show as far as where the storm, where the water is being directed to, if that's helpful for anybody to see. But I'll let other people ask their questions. But one of my comments was regarding the lumen seed areas and some maybe some appropriate plantings going in there.
Yes, John, we are absolutely willing to plant native plants around the edges. You and I discussed this before this meeting. Essentially, along the northern and northwestern edges of the parking lot, there will be some disturbance along the edging, and there we can, where we indicated loam and seed, we can certainly plant native species such as the cordgrass, marsh elder, or sea blight that I observed when I was out there. We're happy to oblige.
And I guess the other thing I wanted to point out is there's probably, I want to say the count was about 12 more parking spots, with them being better defined with this plan.
Yeah, actually, I counted 18, Jen.
Okay, all right.
From existing to proposed.
Okay.
There will be a slight change. I think the plans before you this evening show demolition of the shed in the northerly parking lot. After speaking to the Director of Public Works, we're going to leave that. So we have to modify a little bit of that parking up in that part of the lot so that we can maintain the shed. So we may lose a space or two, but it's still, it'll add 16 spaces and 2 well-defined handicap spots. Right now, it's really unclear where that handicap spot is placed on the lot. So,
Thank you, Sean. Jen, do you want to add anything else yet, or?
Not at this time.
Okay. Jen Foley, this is your
Yeah,
area of expertise.
in many ways, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Or in more than one way, yes. So I have many comments. One, just to start off, this does not feel like an RDA to me. This is, and I support improving the project, so I'm not against it, but I feel like this is not a maintenance thing. There's new pavement going down. So there's actually an expansion of that. Secondarily, I want to make sure we're holding the town to the same guidelines that we would hold any of these abutters to if they were doing projects. And there's a fair amount of solid, well, my words escape me right now, but there's a lot of vegetation that seemingly goes away with some of this, especially with the expansion of the parking lot, and we wouldn't let abutters do that. So I would want to see what the remediation or plan is for that. It's not reflected on this current plan. Maybe my last point for the time being is I don't believe the plan accurately cites the kayak launch. It currently seems to cite a concrete pad, but that's just where a bench is. The launch is actually further to the left.
West.
And is that
to
west?
the west.
Yep.
Yeah.
And where it seems to say, this stone slope protection, like clearly some maintenance work being done there. So that's a very, very active part of the community. So I think we need to make sure that that is accurately reflected on the plan and as part of whatever maintenance work is done.
we can add that. Yep.
That might be good for now.
Let me let a couple other members go ahead, and then anything comes to mind.
Yeah.
So Richard?
Well, I know the lot. Obviously, I'm not as familiar with it, nor do I use it personally. I'm not as familiar with it as Jen would be, but I have to echo her sentiments about the pavement. It's not, I don't believe, if it were anybody else, we would even want to consider a bituminous pavement. I think we'd want something that was a little less, would be handle the rain a little better than that and just running off into the sides. So that's a question I would have, and I think I'm echoing Jennifer's statements. And that would be all I'd have for the moment.
Okay. Penny?
Yeah, in a sense, I don't have a problem with the pavement because it is paved now. And so to me, it's kind of grandfathered in. On the new section, maybe we could look at hard pack or something. And my only other question would be on the kayak launch. There has been brought up a concern last year about those steps when they get wet. They're very slippery. And while we're doing this project, Sean, would it be feasible to cover those the concrete with some type of rubber or something? Because, there's been people concerned about falling when they put their kayaks in.
I'm open to suggestions. Yeah, any ways to improve it that
Yeah.
don't financially break the project.
No.
Definitely open to. Yep. And that's a good idea to cover it with some type of
Well, last year I
material.
brought some squares up to Jen. She has one in the office, and it's a thick rubber with little circles on it, so you have some traction. So maybe we could look at that in the next few weeks, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Something like that. It's just that the concrete gets very slippery now.
Understood. Yep.
Okay, and the only other thing is, yeah, just I'd like to plant as much back as you can of grasses or Rosa Pagosa or something around the parking lot.
Yeah, and the curbing, I think, will help keep vehicles off of it.
Yes.
So it'll have a chance to grow. That's one of the ways we're trying to alleviate the flooding in the lot.
Right.
Not only are we raising the grade a little bit, the curbing gives us another 6 inches from the typical high tides that we see down there that do get into the lot now.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. Eric?
Yeah, I'm with everyone else on the commission, just in terms of, I believe this is greater than just an RDA, just given the scope of the project, especially with the proposed increase of parking area to the north there. Like Richard, I think that exploring some other way to improve the condition of the site, if we don't have to have impervious pavement, that would be preferable throughout the entire thing, because to Jen's point, we do hold individuals to certain standards. If they're going to be doing work on a property, then we do like as a commission to see improvements to that site. Whether or not that's possible in this situation, I don't know, but I thought that Richard's suggestion was a good one. That's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you.
Frank?
Yes, Penny.
Yeah, my only problem with that, Eric, and the rest of you, and I understand where you're coming from, but in a sense, I might be wrong, Frank, but it's always been asphalt. So it's kind of grandfathered in. When we have a driveway near the beach,
They're removing it though, Penny, and they're removing it. And if someone was to remove impervious surface at their own place, for a project, we would ask that removal be replaced with something that is pervious. And I think that's
we would
where
ask that, but if they already had asphalt, it is grandfathered in. That's all. It's a tricky thing. And this parking lot does get used excessively, and I don't know if the hard pack will hold up with the amount of traffic down there. But that's see what happens.
Penny, my idea, and I don't want to speak for Eric, but my idea was to explore this and see if there's an alternative, but not insist on it, at least not now.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, just throwing that out there into the ether, just as amusing.
Yeah.
Okay. Has everybody had a chance to comment?
Yeah, except
I think
you.
so. Well, no, I think we have a hand up.
Okay,
Someone could unmute. It's like Mr.
Yes.
Putnam, maybe.
Yep, Mr. Putnam is unmuted.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Christian Putnam, 81 Glades Road.
Good evening.
Good evening. Representing myself and the North Scituate Beach Improvement Association. I have a couple of questions, and Sean will be familiar with one of them because I ask at every meeting. The North Scituate Beach Improvement Association owns the park, Gordon Park, over by the southeast area of the parking lot where it says loading only. And I just want to be sure that there is some sort of drainage in that area for not only, excuse me, not only rainwater, but also, pardon me, stormwater from the ocean during the storms.
Yeah, that's one of the reason we show the paving going up into those two walkways a little bit, and that's so that we can get positive drainage flowing into the lot and through the lot, so that we don't end up with puddles there.
Okay, so we won't end up with basically a lake in the park. or
No,
a
no.
pond in the park.
No, we'll shed it away from you. We'll take it into the
Okay.
lot. Yep.
Okay,
Uh,
great.
But just to make sure I'm understanding, this plan is showing work on land that the town does not own. So part of that walkway is on the North Scituate Beach Association's land?
I think
Is
it's
that correct?
just short of getting onto that property.
Okay, oh, so it's,
The top
the-
one,
okay,
The town
okay, so the
actually
lower,
owns
the
in that area.
lower,
right?
oh, okay,
Right
I
there.
understand now.
Yep,
Okay,
right there by the shed.
awesome.
So my other question is, where is the rainwater going to go if it's draining to the south into some sort of system there? Where will that exit the lot?
It wraps around the lot to the west and then around the outside edge of the lot and exits at the ditch that runs along the parking lot now.
Okay,
Or-
I see. I see. Yeah, thank
It
you.
runs along behind the Kelly property.
Yep.
Yep, and then wraps around. And there's somewhat of a ditch there now. It hasn't been maintained. People have driven in it, kind of deformed it.
Yep. Yep, I'm familiar with it. Okay. And then finally, I heard at the beginning of this, and this really isn't a conservation thing, but I'll bring it up anyway, that the boathouse is remaining, and we do have an easement to our driveway, which is at the very north side of the new lot. So we would need to take into account our easement for whatever redesign is done up in the north, so we can still access our driveway.
That's correct. Yep. I was
Okay.
going to get to that. When I saw your hand, I said, "Oh, I know what he's doing."
Yeah, exactly.
We're
All right. Well,
blocking
thank
him
you,
out.
Sean.
No. So we're gonna redefine that space up there and make it look like a driveway entrance, and not just an unstriped parking spot. Because
Perfect.
somebody will park there if we don't make it look, and probably some signage.
Yeah.
Private access, something like that. Private
Perfect.
drive. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. That concludes my questions, and I appreciate the opportunity.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
thank you, Mr. Putnam. Do we have anybody else in the audience?
I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay, do any of the other members want to comment? You're still open to, before I give my two, we have another hand up.
Okay, I am unmuting them.
That's the design engineer.
Hi.
Matthew.
Matt Lehman, Strong Tree Engineering. I
Good
just
evening.
wanted to point out, in case it was missed, that the northern section is currently used as driveways and a parking area.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard packed, dense grade and or gravel, and that it's currently acting as an impervious surface and discharging the pollutants associated with sediments that accumulate there. So it's not, in my mind, it's not quite accurate to say that we're just creating a new paved area out of nothing. It is seeking, in some cases, especially when you're very close to a waterway, paving is actually better than gravel because it doesn't constantly discharge sediments. So I just like to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. So while you're on with that, in that area, it looks like there's a catch basin. The plan's pretty small, so I can't see it. Is that catch basin have any it says it's a storm scepter. Is there any separation going on there, or what?
Uh,
What is,
so that's what the storm scepter is. It's a hydrodynamic particle separator that both reduces sediment loading and will remove grease, oil, and floatables. The details given on, I think, the next page. Just a typical detail so you can get an idea of the section. But yeah,
Okay.
so there is currently no treatment, and we'll be both containing the runoff and treating it.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
It looks like we have a hand up. I can defer my questions for a minute if there's another.
Two.
Flo's iPad, I just unmuted.
Oh, hi, it's Jim Hudgens at 83R Glades Road. I just had two questions. One would be, can you just comment on the shed stain? Why is it stained? Or is there a reason? And two, there's a lot of old dockage and pilings that go out into the marsh with old boats there. Is anything going to be done to remediate that?
Right
Either
now,
Sean- go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, we haven't discussed removal of any of that. I think part of the reason for the shed staying was the existing abutters were notified about a month ago to remove any of personal property from this area, within the month. I'm not sure what is in the shed. The Director of Public Works thought it was a bit aggressive to tear it down. We didn't discuss what was in the water.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I mean, but the old boats and everything that are those going to be removed? Or, I mean, they're just things that just, seemingly hasn't moved for 3 to 4 years. I mean, are there just, everything's just going to be left, the docks that are in disrepair? I don't even know who built those, but.
I'll see if there are numbers on the boats that I can locate an owner.
Can I ask a question, Sean? So the boats or the docks or any of this debris, is it in the area where the parking lot's being proposed or being reconstructed, or is it somewhere else?
It won't be an hour away to do the work.
So is it on town? Are they on town property or are they on?
I believe it is town property. Yes.
So I did take a ride out there and I saw lots of different things, but I just wasn't sure what was on town property or what was on private property. I guess the shed looks like there's a portion of it that's on town property, but there's also a portion of it. Is all the shed on town property, or does that go onto somebody else's property?
It's tough to see on the plan.
I mean, I see a property line there.
Yeah, and Christian may be able to answer that better. He's the abutter to the north. It looks like it's sitting on the property line.
I see part of it, but I'm assuming it's bigger than just that little sliver. So it seems like it might be hard to remove.
It's long
You
and
unmute
narrow.
Matt, he might be able to answer your question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely about 1/3 on town property and about 2/3 on the northern abutters property.
So it seems like it would be kind of tough to take down part of it.
Correct. Yeah. And it's a pretty simple structure, so I don't think you can really alter it without compromising it. Yeah.
Yeah. Simple's pretty generous. But I could see why that could present a problem if you would, there's no way you're going to saw that off. So you'd be having to go on to someone else's property. I don't know that we need to work out those details, but the point about getting things cleaned up there, certainly as part of this project, would be nice to see debris and whatnot removed if it's feasible, or like you say, you're not going to take away someone else's boat or something if it can be determined, but it would be nice as part of this project to see things get cleaned up.
Yeah. I can certainly talk with the director and the town administrator about it. Yep.
Thank you, Sean. So there's kind of two things on the table. There's, maybe Mr. Putnam can hang on for a second. We'll grab him in a minute. So two things or a few things that have come up is how it's being constructed and how runoff and whatnot is being handled. And Jen and I had a chance to talk with Sean about this, and it seems like they've done a reasonably good job and Strong Tree of dealing with the lot and regrading the lot, the drainage around the lot. Seems like it'll go a long way to correct some of the issues, or many of the issues, the flooding of the lot, as well as having water just sheet off of it. And I do think a good portion of it is already asphalt. And I probably would agree that the area that's not asphalt's packed pretty hard and doesn't drain well. So you can see a lot of improvements that are here. The other part, though, is it is a pretty ambitious project, with a lot of work going on in addition to what was there before. And I think that the point's been well made by the commission members asking whether this should be considered under an RDA or should have an NOI. My sort of gut feeling is that it's an awful lot to put in under an RDA. And I guess, Sean, I wonder, when we talked with you and Jen about it, we talked about the need for all the paving, which also came up tonight. Do we really need all of this asphalt? And I realize a lot of this is maintenance and, creating the parking areas, the striping, trying to wear and tear and all that. And it would have been nice, I guess, to see any other areas. You explained to me how the crosshatch works, and sometimes I think we did it at Widow's Walk where they created like a swale and got the water to run into a couple of areas, so it wasn't all asphalt. Would it be feasible to have a strip of crushed stone between the asphalt and the curbing so that you have these parking lots that run around the edge? Would it be feasible to have a strip of 2 or 3 feet of crushed stone around the perimeter of the parking lot? You'd still get your stripes in, but it would decrease the amount of impervious area. And I don't know maintenance wise if that works or if the curbing can be supported. Just a question.
Yeah, the curbing it'll be vertical granite, so it'll be set in concrete front and back.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get that infiltration with stone on top of concrete up against the curb. So you're going to lose 6 inches to a foot of usable infiltration area against the curb.
It's a question. I just trying to figure out some ways to maybe decrease the impervious area without compromising the work. I do like the idea of the drainage and the infiltrators, and I think that goes a long way to.
I don't know what's under this lot in terms of material,
right?
To take on infiltration,
right?
Other than what will get into the ditch, which is the majority of the stormwater is directed to that stone line swale.
Gotcha. I mean, we do want to see the water, at least in the northern parking lot. If that the way you've got it graded, it's going to that basin, which separates a lot of impurities, anyways. So I think that's a plus. That's not happening now.
Yeah, right. It's sheeting off the lot.
Yeah,
as is. Yep.
Okay. We got a couple of hands up, and we'll circle back to commission members. We have someone that hasn't spoken before, Kennedy.
Okay, Kennedy, I'm unmuting you.
You're on.
We have somebody, we have the name Kennedy, but we're not, and you're unmuted with a hand up.
Right, I can move on to Mr. Putnam.
Okay.
Okay, again, Christian Putnam, 81 Glades Road. Just to bring some clarity, I hope, to the boathouse at the northern end of the site. My survey shows that that boathouse is on town property. If a piece of it is on our property as the abutter, the town can absolutely take that building down. It's not our building. It was built by a neighbor and is not maintained. And really just holds rodents at this point. So I hope that helps. Maybe that helps with keeping the original configuration for the parking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think as long as we've got everybody out here, if anybody wants to add anything to what they've already said, just so we can get give Sean and Strong Tree as much input as possible.
I just have one quick question for those that live in the town. Now, this northern area, the understanding here is this is a very busy place. And so, you know, by creating spaces for parking, we're limiting the possibility for people to randomly park off the side or whatnot. Do you find that this is extremely busy, or do you feel that there's enough room that we could, you know, reduce that northern area? My belief is that, my understanding is it's the prior, but if you feel that perhaps there's enough, you know, a flow that we don't need these extra spaces, I would like to hear opinion, because I'm again not from this area.
I think that the goal has been to get as much parking as possible. The beaches are hugely popular. And to your point that you just made, you know, we want to keep people from just randomly parking anywhere, you know, up on a dune or on grass or something else. So the goal is to have as much parking as we can get. So I think that's been the goal on this, and you know, with the fees from the parking stickers and all that, to try to improve on it. I think that's important, just from a commission standpoint, looking to reduce impervious areas. So trying to make that balance is important to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I got another hand up.
Yes, I'm unmuting Flo.
Hey, hi, it's Jim Hudgens again. Just one more question. Can you just, again, maybe the engineer can comment. The water that ordinarily would be in the parking lot, when this is remediated, where is that water going to go? Because it's those ditches that run alongside that house, it's not going to hold the water that's in that parking lot. The road, Bailey's Causeway floods. I just like to know, where is that water going to go? Thank you.
Sean or Matt? If Matt can, if you can.
Hello, Matt here again. So the ditches do also contain a 4-inch pipe that greatly increases the capacity of the flow in the swale. Basically everything that isn't the new northern section is directed to the, you could call it 1 or 2 swales. They're connected with a pipe. Yeah, so that's a simple answer. Like Sean mentioned, there already is a depression there. There already is a channel that loops around to the north on that southwest edge of the parking lot. We're just kind of cleaning it up, formalizing it, making sure there won't be any erosion on the side slopes, adding cleanouts to make maintenance easier. So, with regard to flooding due to ocean action, there's not really anything we can do about that if the elevation comes above the curbing onto the parking area. Now, again, like I said, it will still have a path to go back out to that western edge, but you can see where it sort of flares out at the end there. There's a 9 spot grade. And if the ocean's up at 11 or 12, there isn't anywhere for the water to go, period, regardless of what we do.
Thank you. I think that the explanation that I got when Jen and I spent some time with Sean was basically they were trying to pick up the corner of the parking lot that floods at a more regular tide and pitch it so that water wouldn't shed right onto the marsh, but flow more towards Bailey's Causeway and then fill that trench and sort of come around the parking lot. So it's going to remove some of the sediment and go in that direction. As you pointed out, it's in a flood area. So at some point this is going to flood. We can't do anything more with it than that. I'm assuming that a lot of the flooding occurs at a time that the beach parking lot isn't used as frequently. If it's that high tide, there's probably not much beach area either, other than where we added all the sand. But so I think that they've done a pretty good job of trying to address the incidental flooding that happens on the parking lot. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
I
and
think also,
go ahead.
I think also just the improvement of that swale with the addition of the drainage pipe in flood event scenarios, water won't just be sitting there or standing there as it might have otherwise previously, before these proposed improvements. Now it has a throughway to get out. So when the floodwaters do recede, no water is then standing in the parking lot. It's got a clear and easy escape route. So when that flood pressure is reduced, the water is no longer going to be on the parking lot. Whereas currently, there's issue with standing water, post flood pressure. So I think in that sense, it's not just the repaving, but also the drainage that's associated with it and the grading that's attached to the paving as well. That's really improving, the water movement and exit from this site. And I think that's important to consider.
Thank you.
You stole my thunder, Eric. That's exactly what I was gonna
put him on the payroll, Sean. All right.
Actually, Frank.
Yes.
This is the non-engineer speaking. Is there any grading to this pavement that would lend to having any flood water flow back into the ocean or into the river?
The marsh.
We can't pick it up too high because of the existing house in the middle and the elevation of Bailey's Causeway.
Okay.
Right, everything from the roadway comes down into the slot.
Yeah.
And it's pretty flat right now. And of course, we don't want to send any water into that residential house. That
Got it.
It was it's a tough site. It's not easy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I guess we've had a chance to kind of knock this around. And it's here is an IDA. So I don't know if somebody wants to make a motion. Or if there's anybody else who wants to comment first.
Frank, what's the, well, I don't often understand, I'm not sure of the motions on an RDA because I think most of what we're saying is it should be an NOI.
So
So are we
if you were
positive?
A positive determination would require the applicant to file a notice of intent.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think the good news is we've kind of already discussed a lot of this project,
Yeah.
but maybe, so why don't you, if the majority of the commission feels that it should have a positive determination, then they'll have to file that, which I think they can do pretty readily because we've already got a plan in front of us with maybe a couple of simple or a few modifications to address some of the things we asked about.
Okay, so I would make a motion for a positive determination
Okay,
on the Minot Beach parking lot.
so the motion from Jen, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
That's from Richard. All in favor for positive determination, Penny?
Okay,
That's a yes.
yeah.
Eric?
Yes.
Okay, so I think it's determined that it's a positive, but I think the good news is we've had an opportunity to vet this fairly well. So maybe Sean and team with the input that you got from here, maybe you could take a look at it wasn't a lot, but things that might get addressed and see if we can't move it along as quickly as possible. You guys can think about the shed. That's up to how you deal with that. And the boats, any kind of cleanup of all that debris I think would be a huge plus. Thinking about the kayak ramp, depending on the way it's situated, if with the kind of the riprap or whatever that you put in there, if that's a tough spot for that, I don't know whether relocating the kayak launch makes more sense. We don't want to give it up.
No,
It's been a plus, but if it makes more sense to relocate it in there, and then the only thing, Penny, I think in most of these is they're going to be slippery. I mean, if you have anything that gets wet all the time, it's going to grow, algae, whatever is going to do that. And my only suggestion would be maybe something could be drilled into it with a handrail so that
oh,
there'd be
that could help. Yeah, something.
something for
Because
people to hold on to. Because I
the
mean, it's just,
concrete is just become treacherous.
you
I'm told.
watch people trying to launch boats on the parking lot things. Once they start to get wet and dry and wet,
Yeah,
they're gonna grow a certain amount of algae or whatever it is that's growing there.
yeah. No, that's a good idea, Frank, to put a
I
handrail
agree.
on one side. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much. We've taken notes and we'll be sure to get back to you with an improved NOI on this site.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. We'll see you as soon as we
Soon.
can.
Soon. All right. 0 Crescent Ave, which was now 42. This is an amendment.
No, you missed.
No, we're at 210 First Parish.
Oh, I flipped the page.
Yeah.
Sorry.
like
210
the
First
idea,
Parish
though.
Road. Yeah. I'm sorry. So this is a continued hearing. And we have,
I unmuted Chris Frateroli from Goddard Consulting. And we do have Chris Lucas from Lucas Environmental on as well.
great.
Hi, Jen. Thank you, folks. I'm also joined by Bob Rigo, who's an engineer on the project. I'm not sure if you need to promote him or something like that. But anyway, again, for the record, my name is Chris Frateroli. I'm a wetland scientist with Goddard Consulting. Here tonight to continue our discussion of the ANRAD for 210 to 218 First Parish Road. At the end of December, we did receive a review letter from Lucas Environmental. We went ahead and made a bunch of revisions. Many of them were kind of housekeeping things, plan notations, clarity, those types of things. So we made those revisions and submitted that as a package to you about 2 weeks ago. There were a couple of additional things that were noted in Lucas's follow-up letter, which we received a couple hours ago. So we've kind of coordinated this afternoon to begin to talk about those. But just to kind of run through things quickly, from that first letter, we had a handful of plan revisions, flag labeling, and those sorts of things, which warranted no further comment. There was a note about the ditch along that eastern property line, sort of at the back of the site. We did not flag that in the field and have not requested it to be confirmed under this ANRAD. So if the commission would like to include a condition or fact of finding stating as much, we are perfectly amenable to that. I think what is probably going to be the main topic of conversation is the discussion about isolated land subject to flooding, ILSF. So Bob had prepared a letter that kind of documented some of these areas up closer to First Parish Road, these 3 IVWs that we've flagged out in the field. And essentially, we've come to the conclusion that none of these really even come close to containing the amount of water required to be considered ILSF. There were some additional comments from Lucas requesting some additional calculations to kind of substantiate that conclusion. And I'm sure that we can talk about that more. I think Bob can probably speak to the engineering background of that a little bit better than I can. As we go down the list, there were a few other things, tidying up paperwork based on some of the revisions we have. So we submitted a revised delineation report to you, a revised fee transmittal form from Form 3, and then just as we get down the letter, a couple of other items regarding plan revisions. So ultimately, not too much has changed since the last time we saw this plan. But I'd be happy to take any questions. Bob and I will do our best to answer those.
Thank you. Do we want to get comments from Lucas, Jen?
Yes.
That would be the most helpful thing to go to.
Great. For the record, my name is Chris Lucas with Lucas Environmental, professional and certified wetland scientist and registered professional soil scientist. We've been on the site a few times. We've had a good working relationship with Goddard. There was some debate as to the wetland line here. We've made some revisions to the wetland line that are reflected on the plan before you, particularly the area to the northern property. There's a large wetland that does extend on the A series. We are in agreement on the wetland flagging as shown. After the several site visits, Goddard and I have reached a consensus on the wetland line. They have addressed the housekeeping items we've raised as well, corrected the plan revisions. So we think the plan accurately reflects the limit of the wetlands. It accurately reflects the buffer zones. They've differentiated the BVW to the north and east of the site versus the 3 isolated wetlands that you see before you closer to, excuse me, First Parish Road. The 3 remaining comments that we did have, one was regarding the ditch, as Mr. Frederelli mentioned. Again, that ditch is along the eastern property line and well entrenched in the wetland. It wasn't requested as part of the review, so we didn't go slogging through the wetland to look at the ditch. It is shown right along the property line on the site on a previous plan that was reviewed by the commission. It doesn't appear to have been delineated and reviewed at that time, and it looks like it's approximated. I agree that in this case, because it's so far into the wetland, that a fact of finding would be appropriate. That way everybody knows it's there and it has not been reviewed, it has not been confirmed. If the applicant would ever propose something in the wetland, which may or may not be feasible under a notice of intent, at least everyone knows it's there and it could be delineated at that time. Alternatively, you could request them to do it, but that gets messier because they're not asking for it at this time. And it really has no bearing on the other jurisdictional areas of the wetland or such in the buffer zones on the site. So we feel a fact of finding would be appropriate if the commission's amenable to that. The other 2 comments we have are kind of tied together. They're related to the contours on the site and the isolated land subject to flooding. The contours that they have shown now were obtained, their LiDAR data. I'm not sure of the accuracy. We it is better than what was shown before. But this site has some wild microtopography because of the history as a dumping ground and whatever else. So there's depressions throughout the site, mounds, debris, trash, and whatnot. If you go to Mass GIS and the Mass Mapper, there's a contour layer. It actually, that contour layer shows, from what Devin and I could see on the plan, actually shows a little bit more of the microtopography than the LiDAR data. LiDAR data is not, the contour data is not critical for an ANRAD unless you have a local requirement or something that you want to see it. Normally, I would say what they provided would be sufficient for an ANRAD, but not a notice of intent where you're getting into design work. You really want the on-the-ground truthing and survey. But the question here is raised when you're looking at isolated land subject to flooding, you need to look at the contours because, even a couple inches, 6 inches can make a difference on what you're looking at for a depression. So you really should have on the ground accurate contour data to determine if ILSF, isolated land subject to flooding, is present. They did provide data showing the 3 depressions and that they feel that they are too small to hold the volume. That's part of the methodology of looking at it. Mass DEP has wetland policy 85-2 for evaluating ILSF. Part of that goes beyond just looking at the size of the area, but also looking at the methodology. The calculation should be consistent with that described in 310 CMR 10.572A3 and B3, except the calculation should be based on the 24-hour event with the 1-year return period. So they want you to look at the storm event and see if the watershed contributing to the area is large enough. So based on my experience, they are probably correct. It probably is not functioning as isolated land subject to flooding, but I know this project has a lot of interest. And I think it would be appropriate to complete those engineering steps and get more accurate contour data if you're going to definitively say it's not isolated land subject to flooding. Alternatively, if the commission and the applicant wanted, I suppose you could put another fact of finding that this hasn't been resolved and it can be resolved during a notice of intent, but it would probably be cleaner to just do it now. I don't think it's a significant effort. Obviously, there's a cost, but if they're going into permitting, they're going to have to get better data on the contours anyway for design purposes. So that's really up to the commission how they want to proceed with that. But at this point, I don't feel that they have complete data on the ILSF issue. And I'll leave it at that and answer any questions the commission or the applicant may have.
Thank you. Someone from Goddard want to respond to that before we move on?
Yeah, I'll just say, Mr. Chair, I think Bob Rigo, who's the engineer on the project, has his hand raised. I think he can probably speak to that a little bit more thoroughly than I might be able to.
Okay. Do we want to unmute Mr. Rigo?
He is unmuted.
Thank you very much. Bob Rigo with Riverhawk Environmental. I just want to quickly go over the 2 issues raised by Mr. Lucas. First is the policy that he's referencing, Mass DP Wetlands Program Policy 85-2. If you read the entire policy, and I'm just going to read a section from it and then discuss why I think it's applicable to our site. So they talk about delineate, that policy references how to delineate isolated land subject to flooding. As indicated above, if there's an outlet at a given elevation such that water will not be confined within a basin above that elevation, the outlet elevation should generally represent the boundary of the area, unless water will continue to be contained above that elevation despite the presence of an outlet. Thus, the boundary of the isolated land subject to flooding is either the elevation at which the retained water reach an outlet and flow out of an ILSF basin, or the area of inundation resulting from a 100-year storm if there is no such outlet. So our contention is all of the depressions in the isolated land subject to flooding clearly have outlets which drain far before the level of the 1-year storm. So we calculated, and the way we calculated the line of those depressions was we downloaded, LiDAR point data. That LiDAR point data for the site was a total of 2,204,903 points. We use those points to create 10-foot contours. So 10 times the contours you have shown on this plan, but not really representative for a plan that gets submitted, but certainly representative for our calculations. We use that fine microtopography to calculate the volume of all the depressions within the basins. We calculated those depressions at 159 cubic feet. All the depressions in all the 3 isolated vegetated wetlands were calculated at 159 cubic feet. In order to be jurisdictional under the Wetlands Protection Act, you need 10,890 cubic feet. So we're talking about 1.5% of the volume that's required to be jurisdictional. So not even close. What they discussed, what Mr. Lucas discussed, was using, a 1-year, 24-hour storm to establish the limits. I don't believe that's applicable. I think they have an outlet, and that section of that guidance is not applicable. We did, however, just to, for further document our case, we did go ahead and calculate the contributing drainage basin to all 3 of those isolated land subject to flooding. So it kind of starts up by First Parish Road and then drains down to the basin. Those basins are located kind of along the side of a gently sloping hill. We did the calculation. We put it in HydroCAD, which uses TR55 methodology. We put a 1-year storm, 24-hour event, calculated the volume, and we figured that the total volume of water that's generated from that subcatchment is 1,543 cubic. Again, about 10% of what would be required to be a jurisdictional isolated land subject to flooding. So I think it's clearly, and as a professional engineer, that's my statement, that these clearly are not jurisdictional under the Wetlands Protection Act. In terms of the LiDAR data, we did, present, again, it's for plan purposes. Almost never, and never have I done it, and I haven't seen a plan presented yet, that presents contours more detailed than 1-foot contours on a plan for submission. It's just not relevant. Sometimes when we contour groundwater data for environmental projects, we might do it. It's certainly not on a plan for submission for an ANRAD or for design. Many consultants use 2-foot contours to base their design on. I always use 1, but that's what we're basing it on. So, and this is a combination of LiDAR data and field shots that were taken by Webby. So they went out there and shot topographic shots out there. We just used the LiDAR data to supplement those shots. And again, it was over 2 million points that we used in calculation of the LiDAR contours. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen?
I was going to say, I think maybe that could be, maybe we consider having that added to the plan, what was done via LiDAR and what was done on the site. I'm just opening it up now to see if maybe that was already put on here. And I guess my other question was going to be, a square footage question of how much is upland and how much is BVW.
Yes,
But that's going on a different topic from the land subject to flooding. I think Lucas covered it with, if you wanted to be exact, it would end that conversation and we would have that answer. And they would need the information, presumably down the road for any other work there, but we could put it in finding of facts also, the ditch as well.
okay. All right. Well, I think this is, we've got a little bit of discussion tonight, so I'm not, doesn't have to be the final answer with what we to do. And the same thing for members. If you have thoughts or questions, get them out there. I know we're probably going to have a few other folks interested in commenting on this evening. And is it my understanding that that Lucas had some follow-up to that's just gotten submitted? Did I hear that?
Yes, that came in today.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to start commission members. Penny?
Exactly.
I don't know. I kind of don't agree with anybody on this. I just remember years ago when we were out there, you got close to First Parish and boy, it was awful wet. And I still question the area, my cat's in the way, by First Parish, that it's a bigger area of wetlands there. But the experts have been out there and I guess, I don't know. I'm not crazy about the whole thing. I'm sorry. I have nothing else to say.
Okay. Richard?
I really don't have anything for now, other than to echo. I did go out and I've been out there several times actually. It is very wet, but I really don't have anything else to say right now.
Okay. Jen?
Same as Richard and Penny.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I agree with what Chris Lucas had to say regarding the ILSF and the figures being used. And then the rebuttal, just pointing out what is triggering jurisdictionally relative to what they came up with on their calculations, with the data that they had available to them at that time, shows a discrepancy. So it's hard to sort of wrap my head around it as well. It is generally understood that it's a very wet site. I think that we all on the commission sort of understand that just from knowing the area. But I think at the end of the day, when it comes to this ANRAD and then any other potential, NOI later, I think more information now will help inform conversations at that point. So I lean on the side of more granular information than coarse at this phase for this project. And I'll leave it at that for right now.
Okay, thank you. I guess we can open this up to comment. I'd like to cut a couple of things. Obviously, we want folks to state their name and address. And then what I would appreciate is that we don't have repetitive comments. I know this is a pretty sensitive subject and people feel very strongly about it. But for the sake of time and other people's participation, I'd like to make sure that we don't have repetitive comments. So with that, we'll open it up. And seeing a couple of hands, if you can.
Yes, I'm going to unmute Lisa Bertola.
Okay.
Thank you. Lisa Bertola, 52 Elm Street in Scituate.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. I just a comment on isolated lands, subject to flooding. My home was purchased and built in 1997, 98. And after all the departments signed off on the wetness of the land and such, the day before the building inspection, we had a rainstorm and my basement floor heaved. We took pictures based on the building inspector's advice, and those pictures have been used to just demonstrate how water doesn't really flow easily through this area. I'm a straight shot through to where this proposed project will be. on the parallel street of Elm Street. So I think it's, kind of proof that whatever the studies are, after people sign off, we still have major water issues. It took a huge reinvestment by my spouse and I to put a French drain in and correct the flooding. And when the project for the development up the street on First Parish, I think it's Black Beach, I forget the name exactly, the Bargazone property, a couple of years later was proposed, we as a community did, talk about the water issues and concerns about the loss of so much trees, et cetera, for drainage. And that project, if you look back, was mitigated from 15 homes down to 8. And there's a conservation land strip now on Elm Street because we went to land court, all the way to land court in Boston. Vigilant, neighborhood outpour about water issues. And we settled with the proposed developer to back it down from so many houses to fewer. I'm very concerned about this project in terms of the environment. The loss of, again, trees, drainage is not calculated accurately. The neighborhood is left with the impacts of the studies just not being accurate for some reason. So major concerns for that. And final note, just loss of habitat. At the last meeting, I heard someone was going to count impacts on wildlife. Thanks to the conservation land next to us on Elm Street because of the Bargazone project, we do still have, barn owls. We can hear some wildlife in there. We see fireflies. I'm just saying, at some point, we're losing birds and all sorts of wildlife. The more we maximize these projects, and the serious concern for that. So I'd like to know if anyone's going to count the impact on the wildlife as well. And finally, I just think this is not the place for such a dense development. Did the town ever consider giving this developer back his money and buying this through CPC funds? Or please, people who have power and decision-making responsibilities here, consider the impact to the overall community. Trying to get 21 units in such a sensitive area seems excessive. And I hope everyone finds the integrity and the courage to do the right thing. This doesn't seem appropriate.
Thank you. Another hand up. John
yes, I'm going to unmute John Chesia.
Thank you.
Hi, and thank you. Oops, you can hear me.
We got you.
So the only, I agree
John, you want to state your name and address for the record, please? Thank you.
John Chesia, 215 First Parish Road, which is basically directly across the street. And I know many of you know me. I grew up here. I've been here, family house since I think 1919. Obviously, it's very wet. If you go there in a few months, maybe 2 months, maybe not even, you'll see how much water is there. I think they underestimated the quantity. And I think that what's missing from the plan when you're identifying areas, and I'm not necessarily saying it's enough to be an isolated land subject to flooding either, but these are important features when it comes time to the design. There would always be a spot at the low and a spot elevation at the break lines for the high points in between. You just have 1 foot contours, and they may have done something with LiDAR, but from my walking around there, I think that it's wetter sort of towards the little shed on the east side than it looks on this plan, which you might see in the spring. But also, in order to define the area, you need to have the elevation at the lowest points in the holes, and you need to have the elevation at the break divide between the next 2 contours in order to know where it is. And we don't have any of that information. And I know you all know this, but I am also a professional civil engineer and have been for decades. And this is one of my specialties. So that is what usually is shown. And I've reviewed hundreds and hundreds of plans, as well as designed my own. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Do we have anybody else?
I do not see any other hands raised. Hold on. AB 2203.
Again, name and address for the record when you're.
Paul Spencer, 190 Rear, First Parish Road. I've been a resident of the property for 60 years. Regardless of all your calculations, let me tell you, you can skate some years from First Parish Road to the pond, which is out back. All the land pitches in that way. Every house from 190 Rear to Lawson's Common, and from Lawson's Common, Beaver Dam Road to the hill, it goes into a retention pond. That's what that is. And it floods. And there's a man-made brook back there, probably 400 or 500 feet long, 8 feet wide and about 4 feet deep. And it floods and it overflows. It'll be devastating to not only myself, but to my neighbors, all my neighbors. And then it runs under the driveways, overfloods into my neighbor's yard and into Kane Drive. And down there, they really feel it. They really feel it. It's just a wet spot. And, you know, a red light should flash in everybody's eyes. Why 3 acres in a beautiful town of Scituate, where land is at a premium, somebody paying tens of hundreds of $1,000s more than they're worth, why would that come up for foreclosure? Because everybody who's tried to do something out there has not been able to do it. The engineers did their job. So did the conservation. They said no. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Okay. Do we have
Andy?
Yep.
All right, unmuting Andy.
Yes, hi, Andy Mills, 202 First Parish Road. My property is shown on this map as Jane Mills Napolitano. That's my sister. I've since purchased the property from her. I think it is very necessary to show what's referred to as a ditch in the back of this property, because that's where all the water. And I've seen here water flooding right up to First Parish Road. My barn is about where the Mills Napolitano name is, and I see flood all the way around that barn. I want to echo everything that my neighbors have said, because there's been some very good points. So not to be redundant, I just want to say all my neighbors have good points. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Do any other commission members want to add anything? So my experience with a couple of these, and probably the first time I got on the commission as an agent, they were proposing a 40B project or before that, the ANRAD for sanctuary on 3A. And one of the first issues that we had were the contours and the delineation of the wetlands. And I think the contours are extremely important. I think Mr. Cheshire's comments about showing the high and low points in these pieces is critical. And I think that all that information should be part of this. I think it can change. We had gotten sort of, I don't know if it was LiDAR at the time, but it certainly wasn't really accurate information on the site. It's a fairly flat site, and a difference of 6 inches in a lot of these places can be significant. And I do think that they would find that this may hold more water than people are giving it its due if the proper survey was done. It's not a large area. It could be surveyed. And I think that that's a piece that's really important as we look at this for flooding issues is an important one that I believe should be part of this. I also have a question, Mr. Lucas, Mr. Goddard. The lines that were done here, I know that you've had a lot of back and forth on these, but how closely do they mirror other lines that were on this plan from the past? Did anybody look at some of those? It seemed like the initial lines that we received on here were not nearly as significant or large, and I'm just wondering how these got bigger or changed. If you could comment on that.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You
You want to take that one?
You want to start, Chris? I'll
Sure
add
thing.
if I feel otherwise.
Yeah, I do think we've kind of gotten closer to the point of what had been shown on previous plans on this site in the past. We had some kind of professional disagreements out in the field about where flags should lie, but ultimately we came to a conclusion there, and believe we're in agreement on what flags we're showing here on this plan now.
And I agree with him that we've looked at the site conditions as they are now. And I know there's been a lot of history on this site about how wet it is, but we look at wetland vegetation, hydric soils, and the hydrology of the area. Soils were challenging, particularly near the BVW, specifically in the area between flag A23, which is kind of on the northwestern property line. You have that little hook that comes down. Flag 23 is kind of on the right of that, and then it juts up, and there's kind of two upland peninsulas that jut up towards the northern property line. That area was highly disturbed with soils. So there was quite a bit of time spent in those areas. The old plan, I think, generally followed that stone wall to the south. The wetland followed along that and then came up. There was a large upland island peninsula that jutted up from where that existing shed is now, and then it hooked back down. I think this line is fairly similar to that, except that we have kind of an upland finger going up to the north. We had some debate if that should be an upland island versus a finger. It was marginal, I think, under scrutiny and potentially through any appeals. It may or may not stand, but it was a very narrow area anyway. So I think we have a good line here. I think it's an appropriate wetland line. The last line that we looked at, I believe, is from 15 years ago. So wetlands do change. I don't think it's changed significantly other than with that little upland finger coming up, and maybe that was there and they looked at it as an upland island back then, and they just didn't flag it out. I don't know. I can't speak to that, but I do believe it's fairly similar to what's been approved in the past. There are obviously some changes, but that's not uncommon with the amount of time that's passed.
Can I ask how much more wetland area was determined after the review? Do you have any calculations at all? Like what was originally flagged as wetlands and then how much it changed? What?
I don't have square footage numbers for that offhand. I believe the BVW line at the end of the day only changed by like 10 or 20 linear feet. It's certainly shifted around a bit. I'm not sure linear feet is the representative metric for that, but I would have to run some numbers to get square footages.
I think that would be something to know. A plan was submitted by an engineer, and I realize that the wetlands lines are sort of arbitrary, and that's why people review them the way they do. But I think it would be good for us to know what the applicant proposed originally and how much that changed. What I'm really trying to get at is to make sure that all the information on this plan is as accurate as possible. It is a very sensitive area, and it's something that we are going to scrutinize So that information's important, and I don't know where in the process these contour lines will get reviewed, but I think that's part of us in determining the flooding issues that could potentially take place. And I don't think we have enough information for that. And I'm not sure, Chris, is that something that your office would review, or is that going to flip to more of an engineer for those calculations?
It depends how complicated they get. We do regularly review ILSF information. If it gets overly complicated and we feel it's beyond our expertise, we'd recommend a civil engineer review it. I didn't quite catch everything Mr. Rigo had said earlier, but if they've looked at the contributing basins and analyzed the 1 year storm coming off the road, and they can confirm some of the data, maybe they have the information they need to address the concerns we've raised. One of the issues we had, like for example, LiDAR data can be very accurate, and other times it can be very inaccurate. I've seen it go both ways. A lot of times it depends on the site when the data when they flew over. So it's hard to say here how accurate it is. I do know this site has some very detailed microtopography, and their numbers are coming back pretty small compared. If we were really close to the 10,890 cubic feet, I would definitely want more detailed contours, like 6 inch. We've had to do this in some cases where you're down, to 6 inches or less because you have such a tight window. I don't think that's necessary here, but some confirmation on how the accuracy of the LiDAR data would be good. He did indicate that they've meshed it in with some ground truthing, which is always useful. But again, I don't know how accurate that LiDAR data is. It's up to the commission how much detail you're going to want to see on this. If I don't believe it's a huge effort to try to provide the additional calcs. Mr. Rigo may feel otherwise, but if it's not a heavy lift, I would suggest they do it. Put this issue to bed for everybody. If it's really not close, let's just get this resolved, and then close that out. What was I going to say? The other thing, one other thing we've looked at, and we were actually questioned on this recently. We had a site on the North Shore where we had 3 similar isolated wetlands. We analyzed them to see if they were ILSF. We ran the engineering calcs and the volume. They were all too small, but the peer reviewer raised the question, is there a larger basin with one outlet if you include all 3 of them? And that might be something to look at. Where's the overall outlet for the whole front area, including all 3 isolated? Look at a one outlet point and run the volume calcs and the engineering calcs to see if that has a large enough watershed to be ILSF, because it may not, sometimes isolated land subject to flooding doesn't always line up with the delineated boundary of the wetland. It could be a larger area, so that could be something to look at too, to see if these 3 basins are a subset of a larger area that should be evaluated up at the front here.
And I'm not trying to be, this isn't a critical question, but I guess I realize your expertise, I think, follows more along the environmental line. Is that something that should really flip to an engineer that would do those calculations?
It could, if you're more comfortable having a PE review it.
I'm not questioning your ability to do these things, but I'm looking at the area of expertise and how critical this is, and wondering, I mean, they've got 2 different people. They've got an environmental person, and then they've got an engineer reviewing these sort of things. And I'm wondering if that's something that the commission should really have as well.
That would be perfectly appropriate. Like I said, we've reviewed them before, and if I felt it was beyond our expertise, we would let Ms. Smith know. Depending on what they submitted to date, we're comfortable reviewing, and depending on what additional came in, you could hire a PE to review it, or if it's what I expect will come in, we should be okay to review it. If it gives you more comfort hiring a PE, that's perfectly acceptable.
Well, I do think your point, if these things were all calculated together, we could have a different.
You could. I've been doing this for 24 years and I've seen a lot of sites. We've done a lot of work with isolated land subject to flooding. I I don't believe this is going to meet the calculation. We just would like to see some more supporting documentation to that effect. Visually, I don't see it, but again, and their initial numbers they provided are very far off from meeting the definition of isolated land subject to flooding.
But I think we also had some wetlands lines that were kind of far off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. The wetland line changed a bit, but those are different criteria we're looking at.
I understand that, but
I am comfortable with the wetland delineation issue.
okay, thank you. But we're not there tonight. I think we've got some good information. And I think we'll get back to the applicant and the consultants as well. I think we can continue this, just not sure to when.
I think on behalf of the applicant, I'd like to kind of keep this on a quicker turnaround. I think, even just this afternoon after receiving Lucas's follow-up letter, a lot of that groundwork has kind of already been laid. So I'd like to continue this to your next available hearing if possible.
Next available, Jen.
Next available would be February 24th.
Okay, I'll make a motion to continue. First Parish Road, 210, 214, 216 to February 24th.
I'll
second that.
Second from Eric, all in favor. Richard
Yes.
and Jen
Yes. Yes.
and Frank, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I realize we're getting late here and I don't know how
Yeah.
long we have Jen for, so let's
20 more minutes, that's it.
All right.
Zero Crescent.
All right.
Somebody from Grady.
Yeah, let me find everybody.
Hey there, Jeff DeLisi on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening. I think we're gonna have Gabe Padilla and potentially also, if you see him in the queue, Paul Maravito of Grady Consulting, and then Todd Ken, our client, the applicant. Just everybody on the commission, I think, is familiar with this project, this property. We last met on the 16th of December. We took 6 weeks intentionally because what we wanted to do was really comprehensively work with the town's peer review consultant to make sure that we were able to answer questions, have a few rounds of back and forth. One of the challenges at the last meeting was that the commission really wanted a good, I thought, feeling that they understood exactly what was actually happening on the property, meaning with respect to stormwater management and the grades and things of that nature. Noteworthy on this particular application, there was an approval in April of last year, then work was done. Some of that work was not pursuant to the approval. And what was done, or what is being proposed now, which is different than what was approved in April, is a comprehensive stormwater infiltration system. We're putting a basin up towards the top of Crescent Ave and catching all the roof runoff and directing it and infiltrating it to the basin. The result in that is going to decrease the amount of water that makes its way to the area which was always intended to be the infiltration area, which is a planting strip protected by a swale, a raised garden bed type of swale, closer to the coastal bank or the ocean, top of that seawall. And so I'll let the town's peer review consultant, Deb Keller of Merrill Engineering, talk to this. But essentially, we're containing water on our site, and that is being done by the infiltration system, by the retaining walls, and also by swale, which is bringing water down into that area. So the performance standard here is whether we are destabilizing the coastal bank. I think that town's consultant seems to be satisfied with our responses. There is a tree mitigation proposal of 2-to-1 on the red cedar tree with red cedar trees. And we were very careful to make sure in the last 6 weeks on what we were proposing, in particular over near the exit of the basement area towards that patio over there, that we were not disturbing any area within the 50-foot non-disturbance buffer strip. So that's the sum and substance of it. And I think it's probably best if you just went to Deb right now, especially in light of the fact that you guys have a time constraint, and then we can just answer any questions. What we'd like to do is kind of lift the stop work and begin to do some activities out there. And I did want to mention that there was a question of us moving an excavator at the end of the last meeting, and we did that within a matter of a day or two. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
If we have Deb on, let's,
She's still in a different meeting at the moment, so she hasn't joined us yet. I don't know if we want to wait for her, but she did provide comments last week. We talked a bit today. She's, I would say, pretty thoroughly reviewed this, and they've addressed all her comments. She had a couple conditions she suggested to include in the amendment. One of them to confirm all the roof gutters are collecting and discharging to the subsurface chambers. But I mean, I would say, given the amount of time she's given this, it's been reviewed. I would love to hear her comments.
what if, not to push everybody off, but if we don't have Deb here and you are expecting her, Jen?
Yes.
That's fine, Frank. When she comes in, if you want to pick us up from there, we'd appreciate it.
Why don't we
In the
move
meantime,
just
we'll
to,
sit in the queue. Yeah,
all right, that'd be good. Thank you, Joe.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay. So we're gonna go on to
Zero Pond View.
Zero Pond.
Okay.
On January 27th, 6 p.m., the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the notice of intent application for Christopher Lydon for ecological restoration around on-site pond location 0 Pond View Avenue, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information access to meetings available on the website.
And we have Brad Holmes here. I thought I had unmuted him. Sorry. Here we are.
Thank you, Jen.
Can we
Good
turn
evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes from the ECR, here to present an ecological restoration notice of intent for 0 Pond View. This project is an extension of an existing Phragmites removal project that's underway. We had a project that included this site and 17 Pondview Avenue. We kept the Phragmites removal work under 5,000 square feet, so we were able to keep it in the order of conditions that we have in place. But the applicant and property owner would like to expand the treatment area to cover his property lines. So we're extending the area out to approximately 7,000 square feet. The light green area is the area that's under control now, and the additional areas on either side is what we're proposing to add. The only way that we can do more than 5,000 square feet is to permit it through the ecological restoration notice of intent, which we've done. So we're hoping to continue this work and expand upon it to bring back the wetland area to a native plant community and expand what we have in place. So I know you're looking for some time. I think you can gain that tonight on this application, and I'll bring it back to you. You can hit me with any questions.
Thank you. Jen?
I think for this one, we put together some draft orders, and as far as that perspective is concerned, the difference is the documentation and sort of the continuous communication while the project's going on, not just when they're done, but on a yearly basis. Otherwise, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Eric? It's a lot of paperwork here.
I can answer that. The state a few years ago thought it would be nice to promote wetland restoration and ecological projects, and added 17 to 20 more pages of paperwork to go along with it. So go figure.
There we go. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No,
Eric, I'm sorry.
not at
Go
all.
ahead.
I think this is a great project. Happy that, you know, the applicant wants to increase the mitigation area. I don't think I have questions specific to the expansion of the area. However, I did just have a question related to the proposed products. I was involved with Phragmites mitigation and removal along the Charles River up in Boston, and had run a study on glyphosate, the imazapyr and the imizamox, and the trade name Clearcast for imizamox ended up being what we went with, just because it yielded the best results. That was obviously a freshwater environment rather than a brackish. And Brad, I just didn't know if you had any leanings on the three products that you're presenting, and if you saw any benefit of one over the other, given the site conditions.
Good point. I haven't been involved in a project that we've been able to use a different variety or investigate that. This has been done by a licensed herbicide applicator. Crawford Land Management did the first round. I know that we had coordination with Jen in the conservation office prior to the start of work. And I'd have to go through my records to see what they used. They did mow it first so that it was allowed to regrow through the growing season, and then treated it at the end of the summer, which helps to stress the plant and make the herbicide product more effective. And that's what we'll do here. But the specific type that they used, I can certainly get that to the commission, but I don't have it on handy.
Yeah, and I just, like I said, just past experience with these products, just generated the question, and didn't know if the environmental conditions and the, brackish versus fresh had anything to do with that. Because the target species, Phragmites, was the same, or is the same. So, but that's all I have. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. Richard?
No questions. I'm good. I'm glad for the expansion.
Penny?
I think she had to step away for a moment.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. And do we have anybody in the audience? Okay. I think I'm okay. I think Eric made a good point, and Brad, I don't know, just obviously the treatment of this is a concern, and if there's one that would seem to be more beneficial for the environment, obviously that's the side we'd like to err on.
I agree.
Okay.
We'll get all that information to the commission, and I did get a chance to look through the draft conditions that Jen prepared, and I'm in agreement. This isn't a project that can be just a one and done. There'll be ongoing management, so it will be in front of the commission again.
Great, thank you. So I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to close.
Do I have a second?
Second from Jen.
All in favor? Eric?
Yes.
Did Penny come back? And Frank, yes, we got a quorum, so we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. 10 Brookline Road on January 27, 2025. Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the notice of intent application of Matthew Kearney for demolition and construction of a single-family dwelling located at 10 Brookline Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information on how to access the virtual meetings available on the agenda posted on the website.
We have Paul Gunn from Morse Engineering.
Okay,
Hi there. Can you hear me?
we can.
All right. So again, just for the record, Paul Gunn. I'm a civil engineer at Morse Engineering, here representing the applicant for the notice of intent to raise and rebuild the dwelling at 10 Brookline Road. So the site currently contains an existing single-family dwelling with a detached garage and also includes an associated gravel driveway, covered porch, and a mixture of lawn, landscaped, and brush areas. The site is currently served by town water and sewer, subsurface gas, and overhead electric. Resource areas on site include a FEMA Zone AE delineated by elevation 15, which covers approximately 80% of the property. There are no other resource areas or vegetated buffer zones within the vicinity of the project, and the site is not located within a priority habitat, outstanding resource water, or within the vicinity of a vernal pool. The applicant is proposing to demolish and reconstruct the single-family dwelling, as well as to construct a new detached garage with a raised deck. The rebuilt dwelling and new garage will be served by new subsurface utility connections, and the existing gravel driveway will be removed and replaced with a new one. While there is a slight increase in impervious on the site, about 17% for the project, we're proposing 2 subsurface roof dry wells to help mitigate any increase in runoff and provide extra recharge. The new detached garage is to be constructed within the FEMA Zone AE, and so it's going to be equipped with FEMA flood vents per the NFIP requirements. We've also proposed a staked erosion control barrier down gradient of the proposed work to prevent any potential erosion or sedimentation issues. Post-construction, all disturbed areas are going to be stabilized with loam and seed. I will turn it back to the commission for question and comment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jen?
Yes. So my calculations are correct. The footprint of the house is actually a bit smaller than what was originally there. And then we have the new impervious of the garage and the gravel driveway enlarging a bit. I want to say there's a bit of fill coming, not a lot, but something, so that the first floor of the house is out of the floodplain. I guess my question was other things were about is the fence staying along the property line? And I did want to note that this doesn't trigger stormwater. Good that the roof water runoff is being managed. And I would say, considering we do have some additional impervious and the driveway getting larger, typically we ask for a few additional plantings on site. Otherwise, and I agree with the erosion control on the side that it's on, and we usually do a silt sock.
Okay. So let's see, who do we have right now? Richard?
See the demarcations of the trees. Are those trees to be taken down or are they staying?
Down.
Yes, those trees on the initial plan were proposed to be taken down, and I believe actually on the site several of the trees were already removed a little bit early before the full permitting process was completed.
Yeah, I would say that increases the need for mitigation for sure. And so am I reading this right? That there is already a garage there that's to stay and you're adding a garage to this?
Yeah, so there's a current garage structure in the back. I'm not sure to what capacity it actually used as a garage, but it is currently proposed to remain. And the new gravel driveway is connecting to the new garage. So the existing gravel driveway leading to that area would be removed.
And when you say gravel driveway, does that mean it's solid or?
No, the intention is it to be a pervious gravel driveway.
Okay. For now, that's all I've got, Frank.
Thank you. Penny?
Yeah, I was out at the site and talk about a tree being taken down. They took everything. It's barren. There's there's nothing on the site really. So you have to do a lot of mitigation, I'd say, for me to be happy with this, because I was just shocked. Everything is just gone, except the buildings there, but they took everything out back by that garage, which is, poor thing, needs some work, a lot of work, even to be a shed. But where you see the bushes and this and that in the back there, straight back from the proposed house, there's nothing there. I mean, it's open to the next house over on the next street. So I say there's a lot of mitigation needs to be done as far as plantings go. Other than that,
Okay. Jen?
Same as Penny, I am looking for some significant mitigation for all of what's been said already.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, it is unfortunate that work was done prior to this meeting tonight. It's usually how the process goes. And if we're just calling spades, that could trigger an enforcement because of this, work being done ahead of approval. However, as all the other commissioners have stated, I think having a planting plan with natives for mitigation is baseline here. And I think that would be appropriate for the applicant to provide us.
If I may,
yeah,
just in regards to the removed trees and mitigation. So yeah, certainly some of the trees were removed, prior to the hearing, before there was an order of conditions issued. So that was a jump of the gun. That being said, in regards to the actual performance standards, both on the state and the town level, this is land subject to coastal storm flowage. It's not a vegetated resource area. It's not part of a buffer zone there too. And the standards most relate to either work that causes an elevation of floodwaters or a negative redirection of floodwaters, typically caused by direct alteration to the floodplain, such as either introducing large quantities of fill for, say, a septic mound or taking away material, dredging, etc. In this case, while the trees were removed essentially too early within the process, the stumps remained, and there really was no direct alteration to the topography on the site that would impact either cause a negative redirection of floodwaters or increase the elevation of the floodwaters on site. Furthermore, it's our understanding from the applicant that the largest tree on the property, the one along Brooklyn Road, the 40-inch diameter there, was not actually removed by the applicant. It was removed by the town. As far as we're aware, there was no permit issued for the removal of that tree, nor did the town seem to provide any mitigation or replacement for that removed tree. And finally, we did contact DEP on this issue, specifically Greg DeCesar out of the Lakeville office. And based on our conversation with him, at least in regards to the state performance standards, we were led to believe that the removal of these trees and land subject to coastal storm flowage would not typically require a permit, so long as there was no direct alteration to the floodplain, such as being caused by, the removal of stumps or something similar. So it's at least our current opinion based on our review of the performance standards for this resource area that while the trees were removed prematurely, it doesn't necessarily require mitigation or replacement under the current performance standards.
Respectfully, though, Paul, and maybe I'm incorrect here, but for the WPA 10.02 statement of jurisdiction, land subject to coastal storm flowage is under our jurisdiction, and the definition of altering, which is what 10.02 is referring to, involves vegetation, and under that 10.04 definition is also including the destruction of vegetation. So taking a tree down and leaving a stump is destroying vegetation. I mean, just based on jurisdiction, I'm that's where I'm coming from on this.
Sure,
And it
absolutely.
was done before we met tonight, so that's out of order, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
All right, thank you. And which is why I think that we're not unreasonably asking for, planting plans and mitigation effort. I mean, the other commissioners can chime in as well, but I don't believe that the request is unreasonable here.
Thanks, Eric. Where did I leave off with commission members? Did I touch on everybody?
I don't, did you get Jen Foley?
No,
Yes.
but
Oh, sorry.
I'm just gonna say, well said, Eric, and all good.
Okay. And we have a couple of hands up.
Yes, can I say one more thing?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry, Jen.
I'm kind of repeating myself, but often when there's more happening on a site, we do ask for some mitigation to go with it. And then I do have one other question about the stairs and the deck to the detached garage. I'm just curious if I'm looking at this correctly, it's wrapping around to the side, so it's coming down on the property line. I'm curious about that versus it coming down on the other side closer to the house. I wasn't sure the thought into that.
Certainly. I mean, it's not quite on the property line. It's about a foot off the property line, and there are no zoning setbacks for decks. I can certainly discuss with the client positioning on the other side, but as I said, that it's the intention, at least for now, for that structure in the rear yard to remain, which would make it a little bit difficult to fit, a deck of that nature on that side.
Okay, I see that.
Okay.
Aren't you asking about the stairs more so, Jen?
Yeah, well, right.
Stairs on the other side?
I'm sorry?
Can't the stairs at least be on the back?
I think though, Penny, I mean, I get the concern along there. If Paul's saying there is no requirement for decks to be off that, and quite honestly, I think that's within the purview of the building department.
Okay.
We're looking at this. This is an application because they're in the floodplain, and we should stick to that, and then the issues of some of this work being done prematurely. But I think if it's allowed, unless there's a reason that would somehow impede water flow or create a problem, if they're up on piers, I don't see how that really changes much. But maybe we can flip to a couple of the hands that are up.
Okay, I will unmute Karen.
And we need a name and an address, please.
Aaron?
There you are. Karen, you're unmuted.
Unmuted. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm Karen Monaco, and I live just to the right of this property at 6 Brookline, and I've owned my house for 20 plus years here. So, several months ago when all of the trees came down on the property, I was shocked because they formed kind of a nice barrier between the two properties. They weren't super well maintained, but that was okay. They were a nice barrier. So what I'm thinking of doing, particularly because this proposed deck is right up against my fence. Oh, and someone did ask if the fence was going to be coming down. No, definitely not. I put that fence up all around my property actually at considerable expense last April. So the fence is staying. But when I saw where this proposed deck is, I think probably what I'm going to be doing is having a contractor plant a bunch of giant arborvitaes so that I can maintain some privacy in my very little backyard. My hope would be that they would move the deck, move the stairs so that they're on the other side of the garage or the back of the garage, and that deck be positioned so that it's 6 or 8 feet off of my fence, because I mean the houses are so close together, there's so little privacy. But I hope to sort of mitigate against that by having a line of arborvitae trees, basically from the back corner of my property up to where I've got a parking space, which is just forward of my garage. So I'll probably do that at a couple of different stages, but again, there'll be a line of probably about 9 or 10 arborvitaes.
Mrs. Monaco, not to interrupt, but the work that you do in terms of landscaping is your business. We just need to get through a few more meetings, hearings tonight. So your points are made about the deck and that sort of thing, and also the clearing, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Very welcome.
You have
All right.
another hand up?
Yes, Mary Ann Lewis.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to quickly offer 18 Lighthouse Road, sorry, Scituate. I wanted to just answer the commissioner's question about the fence, which Karen just did. It's her fence, so obviously it's going to stay. And just I have some personal knowledge about the lot, and just to sort of reassure everybody about the timeline of events. And Paul did mention that the town actually took down the biggest tree because it was overhanging the road and on wires and creating actually a hazard for people across the street because it was overhanging their driveway. So the town took down a tree. The budding property in the back on Wellesley Road actually took down some of the trees. And then the applicant took down some of the trees. So it wasn't, I know Penny mentioned, it seemed a little bare, but it wasn't sort of this, the applicant coming in with one effort to a one swoop. There were 3 different parties involved in the dismantling of the trees. So I just thought I'd offer that as some perspective for the board to consider that hopefully the applicant isn't going to sort of be punished by costly mitigation for an effort that was sort of a joint effort and not just solely conducted on behalf of the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So do we have anybody else?
I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay. And any other commission members? You're good? So I think, Paul, you've heard the commission members that just frustrated with some of that clearing and whatnot. And I know there's some back and forth on what should or shouldn't have been done, but it seems to me like this could get resolved pretty pretty simply with an agreement to do some planting and revegetating in a few places. On the back of that right now, there's a dimension of 20.5 to the rear of the proposed garage, and there was a tree there, 22-inch tree. I don't think that's there anymore, is it?
No.
I don't believe so.
So that wasn't proposed to be removed. Or on the other corner, it looks like there was a bunch of brush and a 9-inch tree, and I don't think that's there anymore. So there's even, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it is, but I also would just note that that's not located within the land subject to coastal storm flowage.
All right, but I mean, we're looking at a plan that you've drawn and proposed
Mhm.
to what's be there, and it's not that way. So so I think, I mean, I'd just as soon move this along, but I'm wondering if we can't get some sort of, the commission isn't interested in a protracted issue here. We just want to see some mitigation for those few things. And I'd like to keep it as simple as possible. I'm assuming that these folks are going to want to plant out some nice things on this property anyways. So to show us,
Yes.
to show us,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, go
Continue.
ahead. Just show us or offer something here.
Yeah, certainly. I think I would have to probably discuss with the client the nature of the mitigation that they'd be looking to do. As well as, the limit of the mitigation, as was mentioned, for instance, that 40-inch tree was not taken down by the applicant, things of that nature. So
yeah, I think we get that one, and I understand that. You can see it's right on the property line and on the road, and that note is well taken. And so I don't think there was a whole lot of egregious additional work. It's just too bad that went that way. But I can see, people's frustrations with some of these things that happen ahead of time, and we don't need to get into a lot of back and forth. It seems like something really simple could be offered that would be far less time consuming or expensive than the back and forth on this thing.
Sure. Would the commission be open to, determining, voting now, but then on the condition of providing mitigation in the form of 3 native species with locations to kind of be determined with, Jen or whoever on the commission who would also like to, provide input to those species and locations?
Jen, are you okay with that?
Yes. Native species on the site. Yes, 3
Yeah,
trees, and
absolutely.
we'll put a some extra language to that.
Commission members?
Yeah, that's good.
How's
That's
Richard?
reasonable.
Eric?
I just want them to do something.
Pennies? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to close with the stipulation that there will be a planting plan submitted to the conservation office. Does that sound right, Jen?
With
Details.
with details. I don't, do we want a plan, or do we yes, we'll add a condition about submitting a plan with 3 native trees for the for the agent to approve.
Okay. And if you would, Paul, as well, speak to your client about the possibility of maybe shifting that stair and whatnot away. But that, again, that's not in our purview. So
yeah, I'll bring it to their attention for sure.
thank you. All right, we have a motion.
I'll second it.
Second from, what's that?
Richard.
Close and issue.
Yep.
Yes, please.
From Richard, we have a second from Penny. All in favor, Eric?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. I'm assuming it's down to the 4 of us, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Have we heard anything back from Deb Kelly yet?
No, and I don't have an email from her either. So
All right, let's keep going
Okay.
with a couple more of these and see if something turns up. 364, 372 Clap Road. On January 27, 6 p.m., the Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700, Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the notice of intent application of Lillian Litchfield for the demolition and construction of a single-family dwelling located at 364, 372 Clap Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information on how to access the virtual meetings available on the agenda posted on the website.
And we have Paul Gunn, yep, from Morse Engineering.
Great. Good evening, Paul, again.
Yep, thank you. Again, just for the record, Paul Gunn, civil engineer at Morse, representing the applicant for the raise and rebuild notice of intent application at 364-372 Clap Road. So this site previously contained a single family dwelling with associated paved driveways and then a mixture of lawn, landscaped, and wooded areas. I say previous because this dwelling was heavily damaged in a fire that took place in the fall of 2023. A portion of the site to the east contains two garage structures that were once associated with an old auto shop. The previous dwelling was served by town water, overhead electric, and a private septic system. Resource areas on site include the buffer to a bordering vegetated wetland, which lies just over the property line to the north. This wetland line was delineated by South River Environmental in July of 2024. The site otherwise is located within a FEMA Zone X and isn't located in any priority habitat areas. The applicant is proposing to demolish the fire damaged dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling with a new paved driveway and septic system. The new dwelling will also be served by new subsurface utility connections. The new dwelling has been placed as far as possible from the resource area based on current zoning regulations, and efforts have also been made to place the new septic system entirely outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. No work is proposed within the 50-foot buffer, and all proposed work lies in previously disturbed areas that will not alter existing tree lines. A mulch stock is proposed down gradient of the project to mark the limit of work and prevent any erosion or sedimentation into the resource area, and all disturbed areas are to be stabilized post-construction with loam and seed. I'll turn it back to the commission for questions and comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen?
This is definitely well, it seems to me a straightforward project. No comments from DEP. I guess the only thing I would say is most of the site was delineated that pertained to the project. The part where they're not doing any work, that area wasn't delineated. So I just would want to note that the whole site hasn't been flagged. Just where the work is happening.
All right. Anybody, let's see, where do we want to start here? Too bad Brendan's not here. This is his territory. Richard?
I may not be just able to read it the way I should. Is the proposed house basically in the same place that the original building was?
Yes. For the most part, it's been rotated slightly to align better with Clap Road. But it is in the same general location. I believe the existing dwelling was at its closest point about 77 feet off the wetland, and at the closest point of the structures, in this case the porch, at this point would be about 75 feet.
And are you dealing with primarily or essentially the same footage?
Slight increase in square footage, but a lot of that is towards the street, outside of the 100-foot buffer zone.
All right. No, that's fine for now. I'm good.
Okay, Penny?
Yeah, I didn't know that house had a fire in it. That's a shame. No, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Eric?
No, this looks pretty straightforward. Appreciate the septic and leaching out of the 100. So two thumbs up on that. But I got nothing else. Thank you.
Excuse me. We have anybody in the audience? pretty familiar with the site as well. Most of the site's been altered over
Oh, yeah.
time. There was a garage, couple of repair shops. It's actually been cleaned up considerably
I know that is.
in the past 6 months or a year, and it's too bad about the fire. It's an old family home that I'm sure they
Ah,
weren't planning to replace, but I think at this point, talking to the owners or whatnot, that they don't have much choice. So I don't really see. I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping that away, and I don't think, and the septic being pushed out towards the road, away from any of the wetlands is a plus.
yeah.
Okay.
Anybody in the audience, Frank?
I think I asked that.
Did
And
you?
we-
The
Yep.
answer is no.
Yep.
Mom kind of did.
Okay.
I make a motion to close and issue, Jen.
Yes, please.
I'll second it.
So Penny, seconded by Richard. All in favor, Eric?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. 30 Marshfield Ave. We have a-
Request to continue.
do I need to open that one, or do we?
No.
We've
No.
already opened
It's
it.
No,
open.
we already
So
opened.
do we have a time to continue to?
March 17th.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to continue 30 Marshall Ave to March 17th.
We'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Richard. All in favor, Eric
Yes.
and Frank, yes.
All right.
Okay. If we don't have Deb, I guess we should just go back to Jeff and see where we can kind of muddle through here.
I'm still here.
We tried. So we're looking at this plan, the modifications. We've got the now the infiltrators in the front. What else has
Do you want me to have Gabe just walk you through some of the changes or some
Sure.
of the aspects of the plan?
Yep.
Gabe, are you on? He's raising his hand.
All right. I'm
I
hitting
know.
ask to unmute. There it is. Okay.
Can everyone hear me?
We
Yep.
got you.
Yes.
Perfect. Good evening to everyone. I am Gabriel Padilla with Grady Consulting. I'll keep this as short and sweet as possible. So from last time that we met, we received comments from Deb. We addressed all of her comments pertaining to the stormwater. Within those comments were to show the swales that are currently shown in the plan there. There was some notes that were added to the plan in terms of the swale and the removal of wall. We are proposing to remove, pretty much shave off a section of the wall that is beyond the 50-foot buffer that was built in the buffer. And then sections of wall that encroach into the right of way.
Gabe, just go back to the wall. About how much of that wall is currently being shaved off? Just a very small portion, right? Is it more or less than a foot or?
That is correct. The notes on the plan show that the wall on the left to where 40 Crescent Ave is on the left side. You have 3 foot of wall to be removed on each side. 3 feet that go beyond the right-of-way line, and then 3 feet that encroach into the 50-foot buffer. And on the wall to the right, there is a removal of 1 foot of wall that encroaches into the right-of-way. Beyond the changes in the grade out in the front, the only changes in the grade in the back are for the patio area. We are staying within the 100-foot buffer outside the 50-foot buffer. for that disturbance. The swale that is along the berm, which is to the bottom of the plan, that is from the approved plan back in April. There were no changes on that. And then the swale, we were just showing contours, which was already approved in the previous plan. We are also proposing erosion control in the form of a silt sock. And we also added notes to the plan in reference to not have any heavy traffic on top of the infiltration basin out front. If there are any other questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple of things, Mr. Chair, if possible.
Sure.
I just wanted to call to the commission's attention the dwelling at 56. I guess it would be Peggotty Beach Road over there, maybe, or it's 56 Crescent. I'm not sure, but you can see that that's well below well towards the ocean of the top of the coastal bank. I just kind of wanted to point it out just to have a little bit of context as to this project. And then also, I think I indicated at the last meeting that I represent the owner of 40 Crescent Avenue, and he has been communicating with this applicant, and he is satisfied that with the stormwater measures that are in place, that being the wall that was installed and the swale, which is a new feature on this plan that was not on the April 2024 approved plan. And then as far as the tree mitigation is concerned, there are 3 trees towards very close to the coastal bank, near where the planting strip is, which is kind of going all along the top of the coastal bank and protecting the bank. Those 3 trees are staying. And then there were a few trees that were within the limit of work, kind of along the very rear of the building and kind of to the right as you're looking on this particular image. And those were damaged during the work. So the plan is to do a 2-to-1 tree mitigation plan with red cedars. It would be 3 trees to the rear of the building on the right side, 3 trees to the left side, and then up towards the street, 3 more on the left of the driveway and 3 more on the right of the driveway. So I think that answers kind of all of the changes that we discussed at the last meeting and that the commission wanted to hear about. So that's it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jen, do you want to add anything else to that?
Yes, we have the plantings we've asked for are on here from the along the coastal bank. We did have some conditions in the last one about requiring some trees to be planted. So them actually having them on the plan is helpful. I'm in the dark right now. The lights went out on me. If the wall itself is a certain height, you might need building permits for that as well. Just saying that out loud. I think there's a couple places where it's more than 4 feet, but that's for them to decide. And I want to say some of the other differences from the original plan that was approved, with the patio, it's a bit of a different wall going around it. The grade is a bit different, but all of this has been reviewed by Deb as far as just all of the layers coming together of the plan. I'm trying to think what else we were kind of talking about. I thought the swale was on the original plan also, but happy that it's on this plan.
The swale that was on the original plan was the swale. I'm not sure the commission actually remembers. If it was if this was colored up, it would be a lot, it would be a lot more impactful visually.
Mhm.
But there's a planting strip that kind of goes from the bottom right property line all the way on the back edge there of the coastal wall, and then looping up on the contour. If you recall, I want to say it was around contour 22 that that black dash line is, which goes into the abutting property along the rear there. That's actually there's no definition of the top of coastal bank in the regulation. So DEP's adopted a guideline by CZM, and CZM says it has to be a contour. So when you take in this case, there's actually two coastal banks, one along the actual bank itself, which is a man-made landform, and then the other which goes up to the contour 22. And in order to protect that contour 22 in particular, because the man-made landform is not impacted by this whatsoever. But what we've done is we've had a fairly hardy planting strip that runs right along the contour in the back of the property. And the swale that was part of that was designed to be slightly elevated so that when water hit it, it wouldn't just sheet over into the coastal bank. It would actually kind of, unless it was a particularly intense storm, it would just sit there and then infiltrate. And that's how it was designed to be. So when you talk about a swale, that swale was shown on the plan, but the swale along the left side of the house, which you see here, which is new, that's a new feature, which I don't think was on the prior plan. The other thing I just wanted to note, that retaining wall on the left side, which is closest to 40 Crescent, that retaining wall is actually set into the property a bit, such that it's tough to see here. There are multiple sheets on this plan, but if you went to the third sheet, you would see the plan for vegetative mitigation on both sides of that wall. There's quite a bit of mitigation plantings, and then also along the opposite wall there are as well. I just kind of wanted to point that out because it wasn't on the initial site plan that you were looking at. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Richard?
No, I've got no further questions.
Okay, Penny?
Well, they've done a lot. It's just totally unfortunate that they created this problem themselves here. And I'm still not happy about the retaining wall, but if Deb says it's all right, I just don't understand why it's even it wasn't necessary in the original plan, but that's it.
Okay, Eric?
Yeah, certainly a lot of work has been done to upgrade these plans, which is very much appreciated. Goes without saying the frustrations that this project has, so we won't get into that any further. But I also want to point out that it appears that the plant schedule has been updated as well since our last meeting, which I also appreciate. And not to pick nits at all, because like I said, I do appreciate the work that has gone into this. But I would ask one minor thing. Under the Rosa rugosa, if we could substitute that out with the native Rosa virginiana instead. Rosa rugosa, I know, has been typically used for a lot of environmental restoration work in coastal areas. However, it has demonstrated recently in areas in Massachusetts that it is potentially invasive now. So as to avoid future problems, I would request that we replace the Rosa rugosa with the Rosa virginiana. It will still tolerate drought, dry conditions, salt, all conditions that you would expect in a coastal environment, and is a very suitable native replacement for the Rosa rugosa that's being proposed. But that's all I have.
We certainly have no problem with that.
Okay.
Noted.
Do we have anybody in the audience on this one tonight?
I don't see any hands raised. If anybody has any questions, they should raise their hand.
Raise them now.
Oh,
Nope, gone.
Jeff, there's like an offsite planting that goes behind 40. Is that being planted by this applicant, or is that part of 40?
That's going to be planted by this applicant in connection with this project because it was proposed as part of the notice of intent that applied to the vacant lot.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, that's 100% going to be.
I remember something there, but it's been a while, so it's good. Well, I think Jen's had the opportunity to talk with Deb Keller from Merrill, and she's in agreement with this. I think we can see that the applicant certainly
Look,
brought this around.
Here's the other thing is you all have noted, and it hasn't gone lost on me, that you know, it's unfortunate we're here talking about this.
Yeah.
To the extent that Deb has any comments or things that she would like us to consider as we move forward with this project, because based on experience, a lesson has been learned. All that needs to happen is Jen would reach out to us and we'll make our best faith effort to make it all happen. In the interest of moving forward, we appreciate your time tonight.
So this is thank you, Jeff. So this is an amendment to the order. So I think we can just entertain a motion to accept these plans as amended.
and Frank, may I add one thing?
Sure.
Some of the amended orders would be related to the stormwater, the mitigation plan, the condition that Deb had mentioned in her notes about the roof gutters. And in our enforcement letter, we had mentioned requiring a surety for the plants specifically along the bank. I would repeat that in the orders, all the same language, so not a surprise, but just put it in there.
Do we have a figure for that?
I had 10,000.
Okay.
Okay.
We're certainly in agreement with that as well.
Okay.
That surety would be in a form acceptable to you, right, Jen?
In a check, is that what you said?
I said it would be just for purposes of writing.
We're not doing crypto.
Yeah, it's so long as you're comfortable with whatever the form of the surety is the way we're going to work the surety, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Check would be good.
What was that, Penny?
I said a check would be good. It'd be simple.
Okay.
It's been
It
so
is simple.
complicated.
Yep.
All right.
I know. I've just run into that issue before.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just want to make sure that in the vote that you specifically vote to lift the enforcement order so as to allow this to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the
What is
orders.
the motion?
Huh?
What is the motion?
Oh, that's what I'm trying to say that right now. So the motion is to amend the orders. We're going to accept a monetary surety, and then we're going to lift the enforcement order. And if any items that were missed here, the applicant's agreeing to work with the commission to tweak that plan. I think it's pretty thorough. But if we've missed something this evening, I don't want to hold them up waiting for the engineer, and they're amenable to that. So I think we should just move this along. So that's what, if somebody wants to ditto that, because I can't make a motion.
Ditto.
All
Penny
right.
dittoed.
Penny did it.
So Penny's got the motion. We need a second
I'll second.
from Eric. All in favor, Richard
Sure, yes.
and Frank, yes. Great. Maybe being late in the meeting's a good thing for you tonight, Jeff.
I thought it was my skill, I guess. Guess I'm wrong.
The thorough, we'll give you a lot for the thoroughness. I appreciate it.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. What do we got on here, Jen, that we can pull together fairly quick?
Minutes would be great.
Okay.
They were good.
Okay.
So that was a motion to accept.
Yep. The minutes as written for January 6th.
And I would take Richards as a second. Eric?
Oh, Jesus.
Yes.
And Frank, yes.
Oh.
We're gonna not have any other updates. How about a minor modification for 37 Collier?
Yep. Just because that one's been going on for a while, I did want to put the modification request on here. The site work is done, but the area between the road and their like wall that they have right now is gravel. They want to put those chunky cobblestones there. And I just wanted to let everybody know that is what they're intending to do, and then they will be done with at least the groundwork.
Hallelujah.
Okay. And you can, a minor modification is within your wheelhouse to just okay that. So
Yes, we were waiting to get it on a plan. That's taken a little bit, so that we have, so that kind of keeps the record straight. And then the certificate of compliances, the 44 Captain Pierce is the original orders that expired. So not the orders that they're working under. He just needs those closed out to clean up his records. 17 Williamsburg is a septic. 493 Hatherley Road was a recent project. They did a garage addition. 86 Hummerock Beach Road was several years ago. They'd actually requested that. We just kind of hadn't gotten to it. That was a raise rebuild.
And a replace garage.
And replace garage, yes.
Yep.
Okay. Looks good to me. If you're happy with them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's all, folks. It's 8:45.
I'll make a motion to adjourn if you're okay with that.
Josh has got his hand up. I'll take it's a motion. How about a second?
Second.
And Penny, all in favor. Eric?
Yes.
And Frank, yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.
Okay, have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Have a good evening.